Welcome back to That Rugby podcast, hosted by the Rugby Booth. Hughesy's back. He's back, baby.
Back, baby.
He's back in
Back
his
like
Wallabies.
the Wallabies, baby. Yeah.
Went 3-0, and he will be licking his lips and enjoying it, I imagine.
Very much so. Very much so. Look, it's the first time in a while that the Wallabies have won 3 games in a row. Have won their first 3 games of the year in a row. And look, they're not rugby championship opponent teams, but still, a win is a win is a win. Best stat I saw was that in Eddie Jones's entire second tenure, he had 2 wins the entire time. Schmitty has already got 3 on the trot, 3-0. Get Schmidt on, So love it.
Yeah, look, it's been a good time for you, and I thought let's kick off your return by doing some grading, acting like we're teachers and grading the rugby championship teams and their opponents on their performances in tour. So that includes, obviously, the All Blacks, Wallabies, Springboks, and Argentina, and all of their opponents. We won't grade some of the second-tier teams or anything like that. We'll just focus on those major teams. But obviously, all of them, the rugby championship teams, played 3 games. New Zealand hosted England. Wallabies hosted Wales. South Africa hosted Ireland. Argentina played France. And then they all had a minnow game after that. I think Argentina played Uruguay, South Africa, Portugal, you guys, Georgia, and us, Fiji. So I will start, and we're going to start with New Zealand-England, that series first, New Zealand-England, and the New Zealand-Fiji game. I've gone for New Zealand a B- and England a B+. Now, the reason I've gone this, I was tempted for New Zealand to be a C+, because they've passed. They've won the 2 games. Obviously, first games of Razor's reign, and a lot of pressure to kind of deliver straight away. And we had, after a World Cup year, so players moving on, our game manager, Richie Mwanga, leaders in like Sam Whitelock, Sam Kane nodding about. So there was a lot that could go wrong, and to pick up 2 wins, albeit not as convincing against the English, as I guess most New Zealanders would hope, and then kind of start to put it together against the Fijians. It was good. Yeah, it was good to me. So that like they pass and then they get a little bit extra because they delivered on such a short turnaround, I guess, of Razor's tenure and everything like that. Yeah. For the English getting a B+, again, this could have been an A- if they'd picked up a win somewhere. Especially it could have been an A+ if they'd beaten us at Eden Park. Like, I laughed because I was going around that whole day. I said, England got no chance. We don't lose at Eden Park. 30 years, 48 games it was. We don't do it. It doesn't happen. And then they put themselves in the right situation both games to do it. Yeah. There was a lot of English complaints about the call in the end of the first game and justified to a point. But you got to win these games. England haven't done it, but I think they've taken a step. As we said when they were going into the Six Nations, they were building another building block again. They lost to South Africa in 1 point in the World Cup, now losing to us by 1 point and then 7 points. They've got to start to deliver on some of these results, but definitely in a better position.
Yeah, for me, I've given New Zealand a B and England a B+ as well. So the reason for the New Zealand B is actually, I think the English side is probably still a little bit underrated at the moment. You got to remember the Six Nations, they did beat Ireland in the Six Nations. So this is not some English team that is just there making up numbers. They've gotten some results. They had a very close game against France as well, which I believe was in France, 33-31. So very close there. They've come down to New Zealand, 1 point in the first game, 7 points in the second game. I think it's a good showing from England. I think they are a strong team. Got to remember as well, this English team has been together now for a little bit. Borthwick's put his stamp on this team. New Zealand, as we said, first games under Razor. And look, no matter how good a coach is, the first games under that coach are always going to be, a bit unsteady in learning their new system because, practice is one thing, training is one thing, putting it into practice in a game is a totally different one. As well, the change with guard, as you mentioned, from Richie Mo'unga to Damien McKenzie. As great as Damien McKenzie is and has been in Super Rugby, he hasn't been that go-to All Blacks 10 like Mo'unga has. So I think that's and they've got different play styles as well. So for me, I give New Zealand a bit of a bump in their grade from your B- to a B because they did come out with those victories, and that is the most important thing at the end of the day is to come out with wins. And I think against an English opponent that is better than what people give them credit for. England B plus. I mean, similar reasons to you. They had some. They pushed New Zealand, especially that first game. They really pushed New Zealand right to the edge, and were perhaps unlucky not to get the victory. But overall, some really entertaining rugby.
Yeah, take us through your Wallabies and the Welsh. What did you grade them there, Hughesy?
I gave the Wallabies an A minus and the Welsh a C minus, and I'm actually tempted to drop the Welsh down further than that after nearly losing to the Reds. And this is a Reds team without any of their Wallabies players in it, so a full strength Reds team would have beaten the Welsh, arguably. Um, so No, you know what? I am going to change it. I'm going to make it. I'm going to make it an F grade because I think they failed on their tour here. They didn't pick up a single. They picked up a win against Queensland, but they didn't pick up an international win. They didn't beat Australia. Australia coming in with a new coach, a coach selecting a whole heap of uncapped players, a new captain as well for the first game, and a different captain in both the games that they played against Australia. New coach, an Australia who they smashed in the World Cup last year with a lot of the same players. Look, the sides were all there for Wales to snap their losing streak. I think they're on a double-digit losing streak now. Like, that is not great for the Welsh. I think to come away with a scrape-by win against an understrength Super Rugby team in their off-season is not good enough. That's a fail. Look, if they were to salvage this at all, if they'd beaten the Reds convincingly, would have said, okay, look, it's just a tough international environment out there at the moment, but they're building to where they need to be. What are the Welsh building to at the moment? God knows, nothing good from all signs. The Wallabies look A minus. I give them that because they're 3-0. And I think what they showed in those games is where Wallabies of old would have crumbled under a comeback from Wales and Georgia. They stuck it out, they stood firm, and they kept attacking, they kept themselves in the game. Look, what I want to talk about as well is the whole bunch of new players that came in and actually showed out. And I think as well some returning veterans that had some of their best showings. Now, we love Jake Gordon. We've always said he's a rugby player. I haven't been convinced of his place in the gold jersey. However, his two tests, extraordinary. Deserved man of the match the first game. What I saw from him in those two games, which I didn't see from Nick White in the second game, and it's always been one of my pet peeves with Nick White, is fast passes off the ruck. It's passes getting into the hands at pace. Nick White's balls tend to float a bit. It just slows down your line speed that little bit, and you could see the effect of that in the Georgia game when he came on. I loved how Jake Gordon got it out of the ruck. One of New Zealand's great strengths over the years has been Aaron Smith getting that ball out of the ruck so fast and passing it to his forwards at steam, getting pace, making meters through the advantage line. I thought Jake Gordon did that well. The 10s for Australia did not have the best show. I don't think they still have a solidified 10. I think it's a shame that Linner had only brief minutes and then was injured. I think he could have gotten a chance in the Georgia game to really show stuff. Ben Donaldson didn't do enough. Again, a very mixed bag from him, as we've come to sort of expect. Some good and some bad decision making, particularly when running the ball. It's like it may be a good call to run it, but then his actions after being tackled, not showing the desperation to get the ball back, the urgency, I think, and just expecting his forwards to clear out from him and not giving them some effort to push the ball back. Little things like that caused turnovers, which got the Georgians and kept them in the game. But my biggest shout out, and this is something that we've discussed, has to be for Isaac Kalia, the new prop, because we've been talking all year about who's going to play front row for the Wallabies. They don't have any front rows. Bell's gone. You've got Alatoa, you've got Tupou, you've got Slipper, but you need depth. Kalia is providing that. He has showed out really, really well in these first couple of games for the Wallabies. Very, very impressive for the Wallabies. Really happy with what I saw out of him. A lot of other sort of newer players have done well as well. Angus Blythe sticks out to me. Jeremy Williams did well. Filippo Danguno is having a career revival, which is great to see, to get some of that winger depth. But I think the story for the Wallabies, and I'm sure you agree with me here, has got to be the back row. I mean, they have been lights out all three games, no matter who's been in there. But the two shining stars have to be McWright and Valentini. Have just been McWright's been 7 the entire time, but Valentini swapped between 6 and 8, and he has just played like we've come to expect Bobby V to play. Fraser McWright, turnover machine, which the Wallabies thrive off having one of those turnover weapons. Just fantastic to see for the Wallabies to have that real strength in the back row. So, look, there's a lot of stuff to still improve, but it's better to improve with wins than with losses. So, Wallabies A- there. I will just say on the Georgia game quickly, the tries in the game that Georgia scored were incredible, were freaky, a huge level of talent there for the Georgians, particularly the one where they booted it off their own goal line and somehow regathered it. That leads me to another criticism of the Wallabies and our man Tom Wright. Absolutely electric in attack. His defense still leaves me asking questions though, and that is what you need from a fullback in the Rugby Championship is defense and attack. Because New Zealand and South Africa are going to make those breaks where a fullback's going to be required to make the right decision, to make the tackle, to save the game. And I don't know if he wasn't there against the Welsh and the Georgians every single time as he needed to be, and that does not instill me with great confidence for the Rugby Championship. However, we've got a couple of weeks. He's got some time to work on it. Hopefully, Schmitty tightens that part of his game up.
Yeah, look, I've agreed with a lot of that. Just about all of it, to be fair, of your Australian reference there, I guess, and your critiques. I would only go, I just thought, especially in that first game against the Welsh, they came out and the tackles that the Wallabies were making, it was like they had a breath of fresh air and they just been asked to go and play with a bit more freedom, go out, hit someone, go out and play with some freedom. I don't know what it was, but that first game to me was so promising. I think the second game, defense dropped a little bit, but again, scored like that Dalgunu try from the kick that didn't go out. That's an all-effort play, and I don't know if that's Smith delivering that to the lads or the lads just getting up because of the circle now being a bit more refreshed. I thought the two wins against Wales, that's all you could ask for. Like a new coach, as you said, bang, get the wins. The game against Georgia, I know a lot of people say, it's a minnow team. Georgia are good. Like, let's not. No. They're knocking on the door of Six Nations. They have been for so long. So you don't put wins against those teams down lightly. It's not an easy victory, and I think you had to work for it and you earned it. Going over to Wales, I marked them as a C-, and the reason I did this, and we were probably similar thoughts, I think they didn't completely fail their tour. We both predicted a Wallabies, I believe, 2-0 when we predicted it. So, to me, I think the Wallabies, as we've just said, could have won those games by more. I think that's how good the Wallabies looked. I think the Welsh improved every game up until that Reds game. Like I remember I watched their Wales versus South Africa game in Twickenham. They looked miserable the second half. Blowout against you guys in the second half in that first game. They looked better every game. Obviously, I'm not counting that Reds Welsh one too highly on my grading here. I understand why you have. But to me, I look at their international results and I kind of go, look, they're a rebuilding team. They didn't deliver on what they probably wanted to, but they're not far off getting a win. Like, I think against another team, probably below, like, the way I see it, there's 5 top teams if we think about it. There's All Blacks, South Africa, Ireland to me are the top 3. France and England are those 2 teams that at home probably go in as favourites that game. I think Aussie are getting up to that 6 march. Like, I don't see a lot of teams there. I think Scotland-Aussie would be a great matchup, something like that, 6-7. Below that, Wales can beat everyone on their day. I know they lost to Italy in the Six Nations, but I think they could beat Italy. I think they could beat Georgia, could beat likes of Portugal, Fiji and stuff like that. So I don't think Wales are too far out. But again, saying all this, they didn't pick up a win. As you said, I think they're 11 games without a win now, over 300 days without a win. I know they beat Reds, but an international win. So a lot of questions still to answer for the Welsh, and I can see why you went F. Moving on, South Africa versus Ireland. South Africa, I've gone B. Ireland, I've gone A-. Now, South Africa, the only reason I've gone B, and it's harsh, but I think the South Africans would probably grade themselves as that as well. I think they're probably a little bit disappointed with how they played. 2 very, very good games, but we are, like, I sit here and I've juggled this grade for about fucking 5 minutes in my head because we're literally a drop goal away from me giving them an A. If that drop goal doesn't go over and South Africa have won the series 2-0, I go, that's an A. I just think South Africa at home, I thought it was going to be more convincing wins to South Africa. And I think that first game, I was like, if they'd played that first game again in that second game, I probably would be at an A. Even if they had lost it, I just think they weren't as convincing from that first game to that second game. For the Irish to go into South Africa, get a win, A- to me. They, again, themselves probably didn't play their best rugby, but again, 2 very good games, and they found a way to win, and that's going to be important in this Rugby World Cup cycle for Ireland, is not playing your best rugby but finding ways to win, because that's what South Africa do the best. Like, let's be honest, like South Africa can have a bang average game and all of a sudden they've beaten you, and they haven't played their best rugby but they have beaten you.
Yeah, look, my grades are similar. Slight differences in that I've given South Africa a slight level grade of a B minus and Ireland slightly higher grade of A. I mean, my reasoning is the same. I guess just the weight I've given those things is slightly greater or than what you've given them. Look, for me, the win by Ireland with those 2 drop goals, for me, that's the kind of game that South Africa normally wins, especially in South Africa. So it's grinded out, real tough games, a lot of kicking, and even the first game was close as well. So for me, I think Ireland to go in there and to get that type of a win, it's a different sort of win than we're used to seeing from the Irish. And look, it is. I think South Africa, after all of the talk that's happened about the disrespect that was shown by Ireland and all of that stuff, it's stoking those fires of rivalry. I think they'd be bitterly disappointed to not get the 2-0 and not be able to rub Ireland's face in it, because that's what they were building towards, is to have that and to establish their dominance over them, especially at home. And so yeah, I think my reasoning's the same as yours. I just add a little bit more weight to it.
Totally. And then France-Argentina series, round us out. How'd you go there, Hughesy?
Argentina, I gave them a C+. They got a win, which is, sure they're playing on home soil, but it's France. It's one of the, what do we say, top 5, top 6 teams in the world. Strong powerhouse, second in the Six Nations. So it was decent. I think they would have liked to have been a bit more competitive in that first game, but a win is a win is a win. So C+ I think's right there. France, I've given them a Z grade because of all of the off the field stuff. It does make it hard to judge the on the field product when you have people like those that have been exposed to media for their comments and actions. It's hard not to be tainted by that brush. I guess if I was to look purely at the on-field stuff, it'd probably be still a fairly low grade, probably an F or a D minus or something like that. For France is supposed to be a step above Argentina. Like, Argentina is a great rugby team, but if we're talking about the top 10 of rugby, France is in 1 to 5, Argentina's in 6 to 10.
Yep.
Like, this is a team that France is, looking to get some catharsis with. You're looking to get some nice victories over. Not able to do that. They've got the best player in the world in Antoine Dupont backing them. And look, I don't know. For France, I can't really judge too much of the rugby. The things that were said and done, just I don't want to comment on. But yeah, it should be a lot of soul searching for France rugby at the moment.
Yeah, I've gone very similar. I've gone a C for Argentina and a F minus for France. I think it's diabolical tour. They send a weakened team, as they always do on these tours, and I think they rightfully get what they deserve, which is a absolute shambles. And going home with their heads between their legs and a bit of an embarrassment on the rugby stage. So I think France, it's a disgraceful tour for them, and there'll be, as you said, some soul searching going on behind closed doors in the French rugby about what's just happened. For Argentina, I guess they 1-1, lost 1. Didn't see a lot to make me believe, as we're going to go on to this next point, that they're going to be able to, I don't want to say not push, but beat the rugby championship teams and avoid the wooden spoon. A weakened French side who are going for a catastrophe on the off field. They should have won that second game, and they did. but losing the first game. They looked very good against Uruguay, who I think, only lost by like 20 points to France in the midweek fixture that they had.
15.
Yes. So, and then I think Argentina pumped them by like 80. So, look, they're building. And again, Argentina now one of those teams, as you said, they may be 6 to 10, but if you take the foot off the pedal or you underrate them, they'll get you, as the All Blacks felt in Christchurch a couple of years ago, and Argentina felt last year. Aussie felt last year in Combank, as I believe the Argentinians snatched a win. So look, lots of interest, I guess, going on in these games, and that leads us on to the Rugby Championship, and we have our predictions today. Hughesy, would you like to start with yours, or would you like me to go first?
You go first, my friend. You go first.
All right. So, the way that the Rugby Championship is working, is hosts 2 games. So the South Africans will host 2 games against New Zealand, rather than 1-1. Argentina will host 2 games against Australia. New Zealand will host 2 games against Argentina, and then Australia will host 2 games against South Africa, and then the other ones are split. So Argentina hosts 1 versus South Africa hosts 1 versus Argentina, and obviously the Bledisloe, we split games. So, saying all that, New Zealand, I think, have probably the hardest task, which is to go into South Africa and get a win, but we've just seen Ireland do it, so it's not impossible. Second hardest task is obviously South Africa then touring Australia, which has always been interesting place for them to tour, for the lack of a better word on the top of my mind, because they seem to always get a result, the Aussies, against the South Africans. They are hosting a game. The first game is in Brisbane. Obviously, we're only 18 days away, which is crazy to me. Yeah. It seems like it's still further away. Second game, I believe, is in Perth, which is the big one. That you love to win in Perth for some reason. So I kind of look at that and I go, I think Australia take a game from South Africa. South Africa have some injury clouds going into the Rugby Championship. Razzie's still building. A lot of things happening. I think Australia snatched one. It may not be the first one, maybe the second, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Saying that, that's why I think they snatched one. I think New Zealand snatched one over South Africa in South Africa. And I think it then kind of bottles down to points differential, bonus points, everything like that. So, in the end, I've got New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, Argentina is my rankings. But I do see Aussie stealing one from South Africa. I don't see Aussie stealing one from New Zealand. And I see New Zealand stealing one from South Africa to make it a very close table. Like that would leave everyone, I believe, with a very close 1-loss-ish there. And if Australia do somehow manage to take one over New Zealand, we're in play for all 3 of them ending up tied on points. So that's where I see it. I again, as I just said, I don't know if Argentina are there yet, but underrate them at your own peril, and I have done that, and they could easily come out and surprise us. But yeah, I think New Zealand getting the Argentina games at home for the first 2 games, whereas South Africa having to travel for the first 2 games, and Razor getting to build a bit more, while Razzie's kind of chucked into the fire, and he's already been chucked into the fire against Ireland.
Yeah.
I just see us being better equipped to heading over to South Africa than we were.
Yeah. Look, for me, I've just, similar to you, but I swapped Australia and South Africa. I think Australia come in second here because I do think they take a game off New Zealand in Australia, in Stadium Australia, Accor Stadium. With South Africa, look, I think Australia will take one of those games, probably the one in Brisbane rather than the one in Perth, because there's a bigger South African presence in Perth. And it's closer time zone for them. I think South Africans like to play in Perth. Brisbane is a pretty good place for, and the East Coast in general has been sort of where Australia's had better success against South Africa in particular. Perth were pretty good against other teams, not so much South Africa, I believe, just basing off some stuff I've read over the week. So I have New Zealand in the first spot. The reason I have Australia coming second is because, as I said, I think they do take a game off New Zealand. As we discussed in our previous part about our grades, New Zealand looked good, but not perfect, and not the same as, probably not as good as last year. You know what I mean? They're still working out. Both teams have got new coaches. Both teams are bringing new players in. The playing field has leveled somewhat in that regard. Last year Australia had a new coach with an insane philosophy, whereas New Zealand had a solid coach that had been building something for 4 years in preparation for a Rugby World Cup run. So I think that those sort of advantages for New Zealand and Australia, the Australia's come up a little bit, New Zealand's come down a little bit. They're closer than they were and have been for maybe a little bit. So I think Australia can take a game. As I said, I think they'll take a game off of South Africa as well. The biggest challenge for my rankings here, though, and assumptions, is probably the tour of Argentina. That is going to be difficult for Australia to overcome those ones there, and I think those will be very close games. But I trust in Schmidt. I like what he's been building and doing, so that's where I see it. And I think, as you said, that will lead to a very close table. And I think really at the end, what it'll come down to is probably just bonus points separating Australia and New Zealand. And New Zealand, you guys are bloody good at picking up those bonus points. So that's where I see New Zealand coming out on top there.
Yeah, it is. It is one of those ones where I think the last time I was just googling it, South Africa won was 2019. The last time Australia won was 2015. We just have a way of finding ways to win this tournament. And before that, it was, I think, 2009 to South Africa and 2001 to Australia. So, you know, the history favours the All Blacks getting wins. But, with this new format of the two-match tours, it does make it a bit more interesting. All right, obviously, Hughesy, you were on holiday, but some questions came up, some thought-provoking stuff came up. The first one that kind of came up, are the Wallabies back, mate? You've obviously talked a lot about your Wallabies already, but the big question, you're 3-0, are they back?
Yeah. It depends what you mean by back, because it's several, if you think about it like computer backups, right? There's several points that we've backed up from in the past. Are we back to where we were in the 90s, top of the world? No. Okay? Are we even back to 2003 where we were second place at a Rugby World Cup? No. But are we back to sort of a decade ago where we're, competitive and things like that? Probably not quite. I think they're building towards it. I would say the Wallabies are on their way back. You know what I mean? Like, haven't arrived yet. And I don't think anyone from the Wallabies would claim that. One thing I noticed from all of their post-game interviews is they're happy with the wins, but they disappointed with the things that they got wrong and know what they need to get right in the future. What I loved about it, the Wallabies play style and what Schmidt has been talking about, and we even talked about is getting the basics right. I've seen lower penalty counts for the Wallabies, less frustrating mistakes than I've seen in the past for the Wallabies, which is just, it allows that natural talent to just flourish a bit more. We don't need overly complicated game plans. We've got talent that just needs to be unlocked and can let itself bloom on the field. So I think that the Wallabies aren't back, but they're on their way back. They have found, they've gotten in the Uber and are on the way back. Right?
Yeah, I love it. And there's a lot of chat about this, but on the way back is probably a good set. Our man, Eddie Jones, obviously, let's start with, again, another loss on the weekend and an absolute, I think that was 45-10 to Italy. So he's gone smashed by England, beaten by Georgia at home, and then beaten by Italy at home. So not great results for our old dear friend Eddie after what was a disastrous 12 or 10 months in the job. Thoughts on this? And I know I mentioned on the podcast last week that when it came up again, that you were pretty happy that the Wallabies got off the circus now. But what are your thoughts on good old Eddie?
Look, I love Eddie Jones, man, because all his backstabbing and backroom dealing led to him walking away to go take a job in Japan, and we've got a competent coach now. So, cheers, Eddie. Japan, I'm real sorry. You've had to put up with a lot in Japan over the last century. This is in the top 3 of disasters that have happened to Japan. That's it. I can't say anything else without our channel probably getting banned.
I was about to say, watch yourself, boy. And I mean, look, we all love Japanese rugby. It's a big part, so we don't want to see this either. And he's already started mentioning, I know he's got a World Cup cycle. He's starting with this young team apparently, but I've said it many times. Maybe the game has gone past our friend Eddie Jones. Who would have thought? Captaincy thoughts 3 captains in 3 games. Look,
Yeah.
Joe Schmidt has shown, hey, Eddie, it can work. Obviously not by plan, but Liam Wright with a bit of an injury after the first game, so James Slipper stood in. Then they went with big old Allen for the final game with James Slipper being rested. Look, yeah, what are your thoughts on that? Where do you go?
Yeah, it is a bit frustrating because it feels like a bit of a repeat. But what I like is that Liam Wright was named as the Wallabies captain. So what that message that sends to me is that he's the captain when he is there and healthy, right? What I need from Joe Schmidt is to reinforce it so that by the time the South African game rolls around, when they name the squad for that, Liam Wright is in and is captain. Okay, like otherwise, name someone else. We need some certainty. We need some. When Michael Hooper was playing, he was the captain. He didn't captain every single game because he wasn't always healthy, but it was always understood this man is the Wallabies captain, right? So that's the certainty I need. It's sort of like mixed emotions about that because I'm not 100% sure that is the way it's going to play out. That's the way I'd like it to play out. What's unfortunate about that is that it sort of messes up some of the other. It denies some back row opportunities to some other players who I thought have been excellent. Harry Wilson, excellent in his return. Charlie Cahill, excellent in his debut and in his debut starting game. Liam Wright, I thought, had a great game as well when he was playing. I think back row is such a huge strength of the Wallabies at the moment. And that's as well why I'm a bit nervous about naming a back rower captain, because you've got so many other excellent players that maybe it makes sense for a game plan to put one of these other back rowers in. And maybe it would have been better for someone like Fraser McReight, who is going to be in every single game, to be the captain. Like, I don't see how you can take Fraser McReight out of this team. I don't see how you can take Rob Valentini out of this team. Now, we've got the beauty of Valentini being he can play 6 or 8, right? So so that leaves 6 and 8 as both spots to be potentially. You can bring different talent in. Your Charlie Cahill, Harry Wilson, Liam Wright. But that's the thing. When your position is the one which is more expendable than the other two, how do you name that person starting captain? Because then essentially you're locked into that back row combination of what we saw in the first Welsh game of Wright, McWright, and Valentini. Sounds like a law firm, Wright, McWright, and Valentini. But that, I think, because it limits Schmidt's options, that's tough to deal with. So it's sort of mixed emotions. Like, I like what each of the captains has brought to the table. Slipper and Alatoa, their experience. Liam Wright, the fresh perspective. All of them have done a good job. We haven't had any major referee blow-ups or anything like that. I do think the Dalguna decision in the last game was overly harsh, but again, that was a bunker call, not really anything the captain could have done about that. And I'd be very interested to see what the ban is, like the suspension is like for Dalguna for that, because I do think that is a bit ridiculous. That one. I think yellow card, okay. A red card, I mean, come on. Anyway, that's a separate topic. Summation, again, mixed emotions, but it's good mixed emotions because it's mixed emotions due to the strength of the team rather than the deficiencies of the captain. So it's a good problem to have, but it is still an issue that needs to be put to bed.
Totally, yeah. And hopefully Liam Wright can get back on the field and perform well, and he puts the issue to bed, because that's what the best scenario, the best answer to this question is if he just delivers, and then there's no questions about his spot on the team, as you've said. Your Waratahs, my friends, as much as we loved Mr. Coleman, you may have actually got a wee upgrade at head coach by the lucky of teeth. McKellar obviously out at Leicester Tigers, talks about Checker and all this. Checker goes into Leicester Tigers. McKellar ends up at the Tars. But not only that, you get a very experienced head running the operation side of things. I am not going to mispronounce the name because I haven't got it in front of me. But the former Fijian coach.
I'll find it here for you in a second, don't worry.
Who's taking over as head of operations. I don't actually know what his head role is, director, which to me is very good as well. Former front rower, I believe, which is just what you lads need.
Speaking of front rowers, we picked up a couple as well. The man I was talking about before, Isaac Kalia, and also big Taniela Tupou. Big upgrades for the Waratahs, who definitely suffered with front row depth this year with injuries. I've got the name of our next director of performance at the Waratahs. It is Simon Rawalui. I hope I pronounced that correct. And yeah, look, pairing him with McKellar, I think is great. We've got some other great talent there. Suali'i joins next year as well, which we haven't even really talked about. And look, you know, if there's one thing we learned from his 7 minutes in Origin is he'll hit like a bloody truck, which you need to in Union, you know. So good stuff there. No one going to need to ask is departing, so you slot Suali'i in there. Look, I think it's things that definitely it'd be hard for the Waratahs to do any worse next year than they did this year. I don't think they will do as badly next year as they did this year. Things are looking up for the Waratahs.
And on that point, obviously, we've talked pretty heavily about we don't like the idea of regression in Super Rugby, but I'm seeing this movement from the Rebels players, and I'm just going, shit. Like, I don't often get nervous about Australian rugby teams, or Super Rugby teams, but I go, the Reds doubled up, picked up some big names, you know, Dalguna going back. You guys have picked up some big names. The Force, you know, you lose Harry Johnson-Holmes, he goes to the Force. But yeah. I just go, now I look at these Aussie teams and I go, the depth they've got, the ability of each team and players, I think it's going to make a significant difference having 4 teams. And it might even, you know, start to make Australian rugby think, is 4 the right number and is 3 actually the right number back to previous times? And again, I don't agree with that. I know. I don't agree with that.
Twiggy Forest will not let that happen.
No,
I don't.
I agree with that.
The current teams are in that. There's no more expendable teams. I think Australian rugby realised what it's particularly with NRL looking to make Perth a destination as well. I think Rugby Australia know it would be pretty much throwing in the towel and giving up on rugby union to get out of Perth now, right? Twiggy Forrest is a billionaire pumping money into the game. You would lose his support and lose that supply of money. And then your other 3 teams are your 3 foundation teams, right? You can't do away with them. But yeah, it is good to see. I get your point, and I agree with it. To see that talent coming together a bit more is great. And I think again, look, it's just you need to get some players some more experience. And again, it just you wish for something like that National Rugby Championship. You wish that had taken off. You wish that had been run better, and it had the possibility of doing it, but it's just run poorly. You know, it's not, the product is there to be watched. People are watching these international games. That people still enjoy watching rugby union. People still want the Wallabies to succeed. People still enjoy watching rugby union. You've just got to put the product out there better.
Yeah,
to do that, you need to train up your players as well. You need to get them more experience. It all is a circle. There's no one answer. There's several angles of attack that need to be taken here.
Totally, and it wouldn't surprise me with all these moves and everything. You know, there's obviously going to be a lot of depth now, but those premier competitions in Rugby Australia at the moment, your Shoot Shield, your Queensland Premier Rugby, are going to gain, because if Taniela Tupou's now playing for the Waratahs, it probably means one of those props who's already got some game time and isn't getting chucked in the deep end is playing Shoot Shield. So that's a high-level prop who's already played Super Rugby back in the Shoot Shield, delivering on that performance, ideally getting fans into those grounds. So it could be time to start to think about those comps and how do you actually, if I was Australian Rugby, build those comps up, even if it's not a countrywide one, but you focus on those regional ones and how can you best sell that? Because in my opinion, like, I look around, New Zealand club rugby isn't as strong as what I think the Shoot Shield or Queensland Premier Rugby are playing in both. And again, I think there's more talented individuals in New Zealand rugby, don't get me wrong, like club rugby, but as a whole team, as a whole program, I think Shoot Shield clubs and stuff like that are definitely more developed and have bigger potential to grow into a product that more people will watch. And I think if you could get that going on the global stage, that Shoot Shield is the best club rugby competition, or Queensland Premier Rugby, whatever you want to do, like both of those, you have a product there that you can then start to push out to people. And if you can get, those outside English talents coming over, then there's potential for a lot that can that can actually grow the game there. So lots to be discussed in that area. But talking about Super Rugby, obviously the most devastating news of my whole entire life.
Yeah.
Ardie
I'm here
Savea
for you, man. I'm here for you.
is leaving the Hurricanes. And look, we don't even need him. We don't need him. We finished top of the table without him. Am I going to sound like a devastated ex-girlfriend? Yeah, I am. Like, I don't need him in my life. Who is he? What did he bring to me? He left us when we needed him most. When we were on the push for a title, he wasn't there. Look, if there's any team he could go to that would make me feel a little bit happy about myself, it's Moana Pacifica. Like, I remember Bowden Barrett going to the Blues. I remember it well. And you know what I felt? I felt hate, disgust, disappointment, all of those things. I don't feel that this time. I go, you know what I feel? Sad, heartbroken, excitement. I hope he goes there and turns Moana Pacifica into perennial winners. Not champions, because I still hope my Hurricanes win, but perennial winners. And you know also that know what this means? That when he puts on an All Black jersey, he'll be doing it for another 2 years into the Rugby World Cup, which is good. This is good in the long run. He signed back on, but I am heartbroken. And I don't know if I'll recover from this financially or mentally.
Hilarious because in the group chat the other day, you were saying, no, it's not going to happen. Apparently, it's not true. So that's the first stage of grief, denial. You started out with anger there, then you were bargaining. Yeah, if they're, it's, whatever, I don't need him. We made a championship run without him. There's depression, you're sad, and now it's acceptance. I'm happy he's gone. I'm glad he'll make it better. You've literally run through the 5 stages of grief right in front of us all. So, look, I'm happy to look. It is tough, man. Look, it's breakups are never easy. Especially when you see them with someone else, and I feel for you, mate. But look. This is best for everyone. It's time. And look, it's.
What are you gonna say?
It's almost when you have to put down your dog. It's just for the best. It's just for the best. He's in a better place now. It's what's best for him. Okay, you can't be selfish about this, mate. It's what's best for Ardie and for his family. So you can cry, but it's the right thing to accept it. So.
Is it the right thing? Is it? Is he going to win the championship with Moana Pacifica? Probably not. The Hurricanes were this close. They were this close.
Yeah, but he's after this to set him up for the rest of his life. To give him that comfort. He's been a loyal, good pet/player for you. He's chased those balls, he's grabbed them, he's brought them back to you. That's good, but it's his time. It's for his comfort, for the next stage of his existence.
What about all those memories?
To that great place beyond.
The championships that we won together. You know what I mean? Like, what about that? It just feels like, he's broken my heart, and I haven't got.
He'll always remember, and he'll carry them into wherever he goes next, wherever that may be. The great farm upstate, or whatever it may be. But couldn't you see he was just suffering and just chafing under the collar of the Hurricanes being underpaid, underappreciated. He was in pain, and this is the most humane thing to do.
Sure, whatever you say, Hughesy. I don't know. We'll see. I tell you what, one hell of a signing for Moana Pacifica. Yeah. To get to the other side of that, I genuinely believe, like I've said, they don't have an identity. They've struggled with fan bases. If this isn't going to bring people out of the woodwork to be Moana Pacifica fans, like having the current World Rugby Player of the Year going to be playing in your backyard, Mount Smart Stadium, I think it's huge. It's absolutely huge for them and the growth of the game. And I think it'll, it started with his older brother, Julian, moving there. And I thought that was I think that was awesome from him because he probably could have earned more money overseas, Julian Savea, but he put himself or the game ahead of himself and his people and his culture ahead of himself. And I think Ardie Savea has now backed it up and done it again. And it's a testament to the Savea name that they've, willing to do something like that for the good of the game and the good of their people, because how many, Pacifica players now are going to idolise, growing up, Ardie Savea and Julian Savea, seeing what they've done and go, if Ardie can even deliver a finals appearance and they can go, I saw what Ardie Savea did. It's good for the game, I guess. I just hope, you know what I hope? I hope we meet him in a Super Rugby final. I hope it's the Hurricanes in Moana Pacifica, and I hope we beat him by 60. You know, I'll still love him. I'll still think about what he's done for me in my past, but I hope we deliver the biggest smacking in the history of schmackings. That's all I can say. You know, I want to rub it in his face, and I don't think that's wrong. Is there anything wrong with that? I don't think so. All right, I've let it all out now.
Yeah.
I feel good about myself.
You got to do what you need to do, man. Go through your process, you know.
All right, that is us for another week. I don't know. There is probably international rugby on this week, but I don't think anything of meaning. I think we are 18 days away from the Rugby Championship, so that's where we're at. The Tonga are playing the Reds, apparently, on Friday.
Queensland putting in some work this season.
Getting some great preseason games done, building the game. I love that. But yeah, not a lot else. But we will be back again next week, same time, same place. For now, thank you for joining myself and Hughesy on that rugby podcast. We will see you later. Goodbye.
Peace.